a brief thank you message to our sponsor and partner, Google News Initiative, for making the summits possible. And up next, I am delighted to welcome Mariel Richards, Head of Partnerships and soon to be CEO at gal-dem. For those of you who don't know yet, gal-dem is a digital magazine committed to sharing the perspectives of women and non-binary people of color. gal-dem not only launched a successful membership program during the pandemic this summer, but also created an audiobook club in partnership with Jacaranda and Audible that puts in touch guests with journalists and authors. So welcome, Mariel. Congrats on your soon-to-be new title.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for having me. I was just saying, it's a real pleasure to be here and to be speaking after Thomas and Ole and Ville. I really enjoyed their talks earlier this morning, especially about the fear of algorithms amongst journalists. That is something I can relate with. Great. Okay. Well, no, thank you so much for having me. I wanted just to open with just a small recognition for anyone who is watching from Nigeria, just a moment of reflection for the End SARS movement and for the events that happened last night. Our thoughts and prayers are with everyone at the Lekki tollgate at the moment. I'm going to be speaking to you about our audiobook club. So as Anna and Vera said, I'm here to talk to you about our book club at gal-dem, which we launched earlier this year along with our membership model. So for those of you who aren't aware of what gal-dem is an award-winning Black-owned media company that is committed to sharing the perspectives of women and non-binary people of colour in a media industry that is 97% white and 55% male here in the UK. Everything that we do is about addressing inequality and misrepresentation of people of marginalized genders who are of marginalized ethnicities in an industry that really, has a long way to come in terms of equal and fair reporting. We do this by platforming the creative and editorial work of young women and non-binary people of colour, and we do that across a wide range of verticals. We don't just publish on politics and news, we also publish a wide range of first person and opinion pieces, arts reviews, features, music and lifestyle content. We are a very young publication, so we were launched 5 years ago, and we were kind of formalized as a media company just at the start of last year, but our cultural impact is huge. We collaborate with cultural institutions in the UK, with larger magazines like The Guardian, and what we do is really about making a mark on the industry and creating a lasting change that hopefully, will be something that our audience and our community can benefit from outside of gal-dem for years to come. That being said, we do speak to quite a wide range of people. So everything that we publish, it is primarily on our website and our social media platforms. And many people kind of assume that we speak to ourselves, we speak to young women of colour. But as you can see from some of the stats here, it is a very varied audience. So while, take a pinch of salt, this kind of gender split, because it only measures the binary, we do see a 60 to 40% split between audiences that are measured as either male or female. When we're looking at the age distribution, unlike many of our competitors in the market, we do speak to a relatively balanced audience between that younger Gen Z audience and then the older millennial audience, though our core base is very much the main millennial 25 to 34 audience. Now onto the audio stuff. So as well as publishing our content on our website and in our print edition and via our social media channels, we also have a podcast, and our podcast is called Growing Up with gal-dem. It's our first foray into the audio world, and it is very much an intimate environment in which we invite guests from a wide range of verticals, so be they actors, writers, activists, models, anyone who we think has had some sort of cultural impact within our community. We ask them to then respond to a diary entry from when they were younger, or a moment in their life when they were younger, say emails or screenshots from a younger version of themselves, and then give advice to that young person via our podcast. What's important about this, and the reason why we kind of launched this as our first audio offering, is because of the intimacy created between our audiences via our audio medium. We've noticed that, via our live events, even our digital events, we can create a connection with an audience that is not possible on social media or online. No matter how hard you try, it is hard to engage people behind a screen. So the podcast is an opportunity to have that very intimate connection with an audience, a very engaged connection with an audience that is not necessarily possible elsewhere. You only have to look at the kind of view through rate on social videos, maxing out often with online publications at like 5 to 10% versus the listen through rate of podcasts, which is often in excess of 47%, to see that people are far more emotionally connected and far more engaged with audio mediums than they are with other digital mediums that are available online. So we decided that we needed to take this intimacy and this connection into a new world. With all of the events that had been happening over the course of 2020, especially with May and June and the increased awareness around Black Lives Matter and anti-racist activisms, we wanted to create an intimate environment for our audience to connect not only with creatives and with one another, but also with tastemakers and journalists who could help them navigate a newly complicated world in the midst of a pandemic with heightened kind of political strain and stress. We partnered up with Audible and Jacaranda on an incredible project, one that I am so proud of, which is our first ever audio book club. And we think maybe the first ever audio book club available in the UK. The premise of it is to run like a book club. So people are given access to an audiobook via Audible that they will listen through and then come to the event to connect with the author and with a chosen journalist from gal-dem's roster to interview that author and to discuss the themes of the book in slightly more detail. The books that we covered are these ones in front of you. Really, really beautiful books. So we had Mame Blue's Bad Love, Schola von Reinhold's Lot, a really beautiful non-fiction called The Space Between Black and White, and then this month's final edition, Under Solomon's Skies by Bernie. It's a really incredible group, and we're so grateful to Audible and Jacaranda for bringing these incredible books to us. When we were launching this, we wanted to make sure that it was an accessible space. It was a space in which our audience felt that they could connect with us and that they could really explore their love of literature and of the audio sphere in a way that wasn't available elsewhere. So what we did is we opened it up via a competition. We asked people to apply for a place and to give us a reason as to why they thought this was going to be an important space for them. And I just have some of the quotes from the application here, which I think are really, really important. So the first is, I love the accessibility of audiobooks and what they bring, and that for me personally, they are a touchstone, a way to still be able to read during life's busiest points. Everyone loves being read to, no matter how old they are, and audiobooks recreate that childhood magic of story time. The second, I love listening to audiobooks as I feel like the importance of spoken word, how words sound, their tone and rhythm, is often neglected within mainstream literature education. And then the final, reading, be it books or magazines, is a way for me to connect and escape. Audiobooks and podcasts let me slow down and listen deeply. I'm connected to someone who's talking and telling me their story. And I think these three quotes, which are taken from some of the applicants to the book club, really shows the power of audio. And I know that a lot of us will be thinking about audio and how we use that within our news reporting, within our journalism, maybe within some of the longer form contexts, such as investigative pieces. And it's really important that we remember this emotional connection that audio brings when we're considering what media we want to deliver our content in. I think the audio feels like quite an intimidating space to be in, because, you know, it's a new way of reporting, and, you know, it feels like there has been a massive explosion of podcasts over the last 6 to 7 months. But it is such a powerful medium, and that means whether it's within fiction context or non-fiction, people have an emotional connection to audio that they just don't have with the written word, and that they just don't have even with video content as well. And so what's really important for us is to retain that, not just through the podcast offering and this audio book club, but throughout all of the different media that gal-dem puts forward, is remembering that audio offers us this childhood magic of story time, and it allows us to connect with an audience in a really textural way. So you'll see in that quote how they're saying how words sound and their tone and rhythm. It's really important that we provide this access to content in this way. So the audio book club itself, we have had a really, really beautiful time with it over the last 4 months. And I just have a couple of these really sweet screenshots. clubs online, meetings online, it's a weird new world. And I think that we are all adapting to kind of how the pandemic has affected the ways in which we connect with one another, the ways in which we kind of share our institutional understanding, even in events like this, which are now digital. But what's lovely is, we can still create very intimate environments. Zoom, it's not the same as being in a room with people. We can no longer hug and touch one another's shoulders and kind of have that body language intimacy that we would otherwise. But again, this kind of the focus on audio and the focus on the intimacy of that medium has allowed us to create an environment where women of color, specifically Black women here and Black non-binary people, can connect with one another, share their passion for literature and share their passion for journalism in a really kind of connected and engaged way. The way that we run the audiobook club is we obviously have the Zoom call, and then we will stream parts of the audiobook club throughout the event to pose questions to the author and the journalist to kind of provoke conversations. And then we close off the book club with a group discussion, the same way I think most book clubs would be run. And it's a really great environment because, as you can see, everyone is super relaxed. Everyone is in an environment that they trust and feel comfortable with. And because it's an audiobook club, we know that people have had this quite emotional connection with the content. Now, I know that I'm kind of talking about the texture and the emotion and all of the feels of audio a lot, but I think that it's important to always root this back in data and quantitative data at that. So along with kind of our proposals into Audible and Jacaranda, we did a huge amount of desk research and quantitative research that explored how audio was performing in the market, how we felt audio was moving as a trend. And here are some of the kind of key findings that we found that I think are quite important. So we saw that while music listening has gone down by 5% over the last 6 years, actually listening to the spoken word via podcasts and audiobooks and the radio has gone up by 20%. And I imagine that once we see another snapshot from Edison Research over the course of 2020 with the effect of the pandemic and the way that's changed our mobility, we will probably see this increase again, especially with the kind of plethora of podcasts and audio offerings that have been launched over the last 6 months or so. From that same piece of research, we saw that large percentages of consumers are saying that they're turning to spoken word content for information, but also for inspiration and entertainment and companionship. So, that kind of range of types of different content that you can have within audio is really, really, really wide. And I would urge kind of as many publishers as there are out there who are listening to think about audio as a way of presenting content, not just for, say, like, the kind of typical things that we expect out of publication podcasts, like investigative pieces, long form content, but also just for smaller short-term information bursts, like Thomas and Ole were explaining earlier. We can present content in a variety of different ways, and it can speak to a lot of different interests. Other stats here. So more than 3/4 of listeners are describing listening to podcasts or audiobooks as like tuning into a friend, again, showing that you can create a connection with your audience via audio that you otherwise would not be able to create online or in print. And then specifically for the UK, we saw that between 2019 and 2020, 15% of Brits had tuned into an audiobook. So that's a massive, massive, massive proportion of people, especially considering kind of the age of audiobooks in the digital medium. And then a kind of finance one, because I feel like, even though we're all journalists here, money does speak a lot of the time. We have seen that sales and revenue for audiobooks in the UK has gone up hugely, 43% year on year from 2019 to 2020. And that is not an insignificant percentage. I think when we compare that to how we've seen podcasts culturally really make such a huge impact, we can kind of see that audio is a massive space that as content creators, as journalists, as publishers, we need to be paying a huge amount of attention to. And then just to kind of go into some examples. So when we're considering how we function as a news publication at gal-dem, historically we have relied, as many publications have, we've relied on advertisers as our main source of revenue. And over the course of 2020, we decided that actually we were going to pivot to a membership because, as I think many news publishers will find, advertising is incredibly fickle, and especially when you are a highly political organization, especially when you are a young organization, relying on advertisers can be quite a stressful way to generate your revenue. For gal-dem, not only did we want to make sure that we were diversifying our revenue streams just for kind of, general financial well-being, we also wanted to make sure that our audience, who rely on us for really rigorous reporting that comes from communities that otherwise aren't represented elsewhere, felt that they had a connection to what we were producing and felt like they had a stake in us, and also could rely on us to kind of only work with the advertisers and the brands that really spoke to them and to their political leanings and their values. For us to be picky about the advertisers that we work with, we need to have alternative sources of revenue. So we launched a membership model in March 2020, which was an incredible opportunity for us to tap into our reader base and encourage them to support our journalism. We're really proud that we are now at nearly 3,000 members, which is huge for us. And, a strong proportion of our revenue is generated from memberships at the moment. And we saw that actually there are other publications that similarly try to hold truth to power and produce really rigorous reporting on the other side of the pond in the United States that were doing this same thing. So this year, I'm not sure, but if you've already seen, but Slate, which is an incredible publication, has launched their membership model as a metered paywall. So not a full paywall, and actually quite a generous one in that you have access to, I think it's up to 5 articles before you are hit with the paywall. But they now have 60,000 paying members. And what's especially interesting, I think, for this presentation here is that over 50% of Slate's revenue is generated via audio. So the memberships that they can see that are driven from their podcasts, as well as some of the revenue that they drive from advertisers inside their podcasts. And I've put in here some logos of some other publications that I think are super interesting when we're looking at this kind of connection between revenue, members and audio below, such as The Guardian in the United Kingdom, and then some other American based publications such as Radiotopia, Quartz, and the New York Magazine. For us at gal-dem, our members are a huge part of what we do and what we produce. And we do offer specific audio experiences for them. So whenever we run digital events or whenever we run panel discussions, we make the audio available as a podcast to our members online afterwards. And that has been really great in kind of keeping our members engaged and excited about what they're able to contribute to through their monthly payments. And what we're looking at doing over the course of the next year is launching audio specific experiences via like gal-dem owned podcasts that our members then have access to. Thank you so much. I feel like that was a slight whistle-stop tour through not only our audio book club, but also a little bit of our membership and the podcast opportunities that that we have launched here at gal-dem. Let me know if you have any questions.
Hi, Mariel. How are you? Thank you so much for this great presentation. Yes, we have one question, and let me read it here. Just a second. Can you tell us a bit more about how gal-dem established the partnership with Audible and Jacaranda?
Yeah, of course. So we reached out to Audible and Jacaranda via their PR company, and the first discussions were really around Jacaranda's initiative 20 in 20, which I would recommend everyone to look up because it's an incredible program where this small publisher is publishing 20 books by Black authors in 2020. And that is a commitment that they had made long before kind of the global events that we saw happening towards the end of May and the start of June this year around Black Lives Matter, and is a really fantastic group of authors that Jacaranda has pushed a huge amount of work into. Because of our shared values with Jacaranda, we were excited to work with them and see how we could support them in some of the work that they were doing to get their authors, fiction and non-fiction, in front of relevant audiences. And what we did is kind of work with their PR company to try and bring Audible in on this, because, you know, I think as two publishers, gal-dem and Jacaranda, we obviously, you know, we wanted to go down the route of really pushing this in front of audiences, getting them super engaged, but we needed the support of a tech platform like Audible to make sure that we had that emotional connection with people and we had that ease of delivering the partnership to people. So it was a joint effort. You know, it was kind of from our initial reach outs to Jacaranda through their PR agency, and then Audible came in afterwards to help support via the audio element and the tech element, which was great.
And there is another question. You talked during your presentation about investigative journalism, long-term in audio podcast. So is gal-dem planning to go into this format very soon or next year?
This is one of those questions where the answer is always yes. Like we 100% want to commit more to podcasts, but as I'm sure lots of small publishers feel right now, it's hard to predict where the next few months will take us. We are really, really, really blessed to be working with Acast in a really kind of collaborative manner to bring some of our audio offerings to life. So we're looking at how we can work with them in a slightly more integrated way to bring new podcast offerings to our audience. Podcasting is great. There is like such a small barrier to entry. All you really need is a laptop. You can record the content online via your browser, via free-to-pay apps, and edit it really easily. So I think for all of the small businesses out there considering podcasting, it's something 100% to try. It is so easy to get started. What we're keen to do at gal-dem is to make sure that we are breaking new ground, though. So a large part of the next few months will be strategizing with our partners at Acast and also with the journalists internally at gal-dem to see what areas we need to support in. Where can we be a new voice? Where can we add to the conversations in audio rather than just replicating what's already out there? But yes, it is definitely on the cards for 2021, but I cannot promise what month the new podcasts will come.
Nice to hear, and we will follow your work for sure.
Thank you.
And back to the studio.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the news this morning and Mariel brought to our attention that a number of people taking part in a protest against police brutality have reportedly been shot dead or wounded in Nigeria's biggest city, Lagos. So I believe you would like to say a few words about this, Mariel, and we do have an extra couple of minutes for it, so please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I just wanted to perhaps hold a kind of moment's silence for everyone who is tuning in, to just kind of to hold remembrance for what is happening right now in Lagos, and specifically last night's events at the Lekki toll gate. If anyone who is watching isn't yet aware, I think it's really important for us within the journalism industry to be really tuned into this. We've had a year of heightened awareness around police brutality, and I think it's important that we kind of hold power to account across the world, not just in the United States. And what's happening right now in Nigeria really deserves our attention. So I would invite you all to kind of join me in 1 minute silence, just for everything that's happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariel. And thanks everybody who joined this moment of silence.